I am Paul Brodie, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. Today, we're being joined by Jon Mowat, author of Video Marketing Strategy. Jon, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's very exciting.
You ready to get started?
Absolutely. Yeah, totally.
All right. Question number one. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author who is currently writing their book?
Do you know what? There's so many bits of advice to give. It's like, how do you hone it down to that one piece? I mean, all I can do is tell you about the one bit that I wish I'd done better, which was tracking my sources as I went along. Because when I'd finished the book, I was only about halfway through that I started tracking who'd quoted this, where I found that quote from, and just literally doing your referencing as you go along, because I spent weeks at the end digging back through my brain, trying to find out who'd said that and that. It's a first-timer's mistake, and it just saves you days. That's my main piece, although, to be honest, I've got loads of other bits of it as well.
Well, and this is going to transition nicely into our next question, and that is, what do you feel is the hardest part about getting published?
Do you know what? I found getting published easy. And I know that's weird, but basically I was writing loads of blogs and loads of content anyway. And I put a piece out in Adweek, UK Adweek. And a publisher who was looking for a book on video marketing strategy, because it's a very big area. She wanted something on video. She read this piece in Adweek. She got me on LinkedIn. I gave her a chapter structure within 2 weeks. And I was signed within 4. So I actually found the process of getting a publisher quite easy. But I think the hardest part for me was actually, because I run a company as well that does video and does marketing strategy, just finding the time in life to get the book done. But actually getting the publisher was easy, but it was getting the book done that was the hardest bit.
Now, in regards to your book, just to ask you a quick follow-up question, did you repurpose a lot of your content from your different blogs, or how did you actually create the structure for your book?
That's a really good question. I mean, I'm a storyteller. I came up through making documentaries, and I really wanted to make something which worked as a piece of, had a narrative arc to it. So whereas blogs tend to be very short pieces of content, however many hundreds of words, and they're quite bitty, I wanted this not to be a collection of essays. So I built a structure which was an introduction to why video is such a force in the world. I then wanted to build an arc where I explained why video works, the psychology behind it, and then I moved into how it works and how you can practically do it, and then I looked to the future. So I think for me, it was about building that overarching structure. So yeah, there's a few bits of the blog in it, but really I started from scratch.
Excellent. And let's talk about marketing. Please share a marketing strategy that you have used in your book launch that worked well.
For me, it's there's a sort of a lovely circle of public speaking. So I do public speaking anyway. I speak at marketing conferences, and certainly mentioning, it's twofold. One, when you are at it, you mention the book and the sales go up. And in fact, the publisher has stands very often at the events that I speak at. So that I can direct them straight to the Kogan page stand straight after. But actually, because of the book, I'm getting booked for more events, and you just get this lovely cycle. So I'm off to Romania again in a few weeks, and the sales will peak in Romania in that week. And it just gives you something to talk about. So for me, it's about live speaking. It's been the main way of driving sort of book sales, really, because you sell on the day, but also that conversation that gets built around it just helps drive the noise.
Well, and you mentioned that you did speaking before the book too. So what's been the difference now since having your book when you're speaking at these conferences? How has that changed things?
I've got better slots. I'm speaking to larger audiences. I'm now speaking on main stages, not second stages. But the main reason that's happened is by writing the book, I've been able to put what I want to say in a really clear structure. I've got my examples much more nailed. I've got my whole story as upped. My game is upped in terms of the presentation that I'm giving. So when I walk on stage, writing the book has just given me so much more depth of knowledge. I can answer the questions much better. I have a frame of reference for everything. So the two things is the book's driven me to get better stages, but when I'm on those stages, having written the book, I've just got the story nailed, you know?
Well, and it's also most likely leverage your authority too, because when you can introduce yourself as a published author, it just brings so much more credibility into it.
Oh, absolutely. And also like when you go to pitches or business presentations, they're like, well, do you know what you're talking about? And you just go, yeah, I literally wrote the book on it, and just push it over the table. It's the weight that you need, and very often that's the end of the conversation. Yep, got that. We'll read that later. So yeah, it is an absolute weight of authority. I think the thing that I wanted my book to do was to be that weight of authority, because there's dozens of video books out there, hundreds of video books, but they're all very much, this is how you make a video and this is how you make a YouTube thing. And I wanted something which was strategic and weightier, and it could actually sit into a proper marketing discussion. And by having that weight of thought in there and sort of psychology of the whole thing, just lifts it above the others. And I think that was looking back on it, that was a really good move, actually.
Excellent. Well, let's talk about your favorite book. So what is your favorite book, and what was the number one thing that you learned from it?
The main thing, I'm trying to decide. I mean, there's two books. There's Byron How Brands Grow, and there is Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow by Kahneman. Is it Kahneman? I think it is Kahneman. It's difficult to know which one of those two has been most influential, but I think if we went for Byron, which is How Brands Grow, I think everybody who's in the marketing space, everyone who's got a brand, should really understand that in terms of his kind of thinking on how any brand grows in terms of long-term thinking, short-term thinking, emotional connections. So what I did with my book was I was able to take a lot of his quite deep thinking and then sort of put it within a structure of video and video marketing. So I took a lot from that book. It's quite difficult to nail it down, but really the number one thing I took from it was helping my clients to understand that there's a temptation in social media to keep talking to your existing audiences. But if you want your brand to grow, or whatever it is to grow, you have to expand into new audiences and keep growing the conversation. So that's really informed how I help my clients to do their video strategy.
And what is your favorite quote and why?
My favorite quote is from Microsoft, Bill Gates, and he said, you've got the team right when you can't get on it. And it's away from books, but my company is growing. I now look and I know that I've got people in place who are doing the job better than I would. And that's great, because as soon as you've got them in place, you can stand back and let them get on with it.
Nice. Now, Jon, I want to thank you for being a guest on the show. What is the best way for people to find you online?
Okay. You can find me. I'm Jon_Hurricane, or just Google Jon Mowat and video marketing strategy. And I'm all over the place. You can't miss me.
All right, Jon. Well, again, thank you for being on the show, and I wish you all the best in your author journey ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how to get your book published with a proven system that works, grab a free copy of my book at getpublishedpodcast.com.